You've seen these bags in the store, ones like this one to make 15 bean soup. Well, these are just seeds, and I can take some of these seeds and plant them in my garden bed, grow, harvest, and then I'll have all the 15 bean soup that I could ever want. Join me today as I show you how I can take a bag from the grocery store and turn it into a bountiful harvest. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and buying bags like this at the store can be a very cost-effective way to grow plants in your garden. These are dried beans. Typically we will rehydrate these and make a 15 bean soup, but if instead I take these beans and put them in the soil, I can expect that they'll grow into bean plants. These bean seeds can sprout and grow a plant and produce a harvest. So I'm putting them into this bed today, and we'll be tracking the results to see what we get at harvest. If you're wondering what's included in this bag, let's look at the list of ingredients. We have northern beans, pinto beans, large lima beans. We've got a yellow eye bean, a garbanzo bean, a baby lima bean. We do have green split peas, but we have a kidney bean, a cranberry bean, a small white bean, a pink bean, a small red bean, yellow split peas, lentils, navy beans, a white kidney bean, and a black bean. Now we do need to think of these as seeds, and the seeds need to be whole to put in the ground and expect germination. So the split peas are not going to work. We could take a dried pea and plant it as long as it was whole. The split peas are not going to work, but if you are keeping track, even when we take out the green split pea and the yellow split pea, we're still left with 15 beans. I'm devoting this entire bed to growing these beans. This is a Garden in Minutes bed, and this is the Garden Grid watering system. Following the guidelines on the Garden in Minutes website, which corresponds to the square foot gardening guidelines, we can put 4 to 9 of these seeds in each grid. These should be bush beans. Most commonly, the beans you're going to buy at the store come from bush bean plants. So, assuming they're bush beans, I'll be able to grow in each of these grids. Typical spacing for bush beans is to put the seeds about 2 to 3 inches apart. And if you look online and if you look at seed packets, you'll see that we should have rows that are 18 to 24 inches apart. Well, forget all of that. When you're planting in a grid, we can grow the seeds and the plants much closer together. I don't need a row to get in here and work when I can access this raised bed from all sides. I have 32 squares in this 4 foot by 8 foot bed. So my plan is to use 2 squares for each type of bean. The next step is to go ahead and pour these into a container so I can separate out the different bean types and then put them in the ground. Okay, I've counted out 16 of each of the types of beans. The bag was a little light with the large lima beans, so I only ended up with 8 of those. Not a problem. My plan is to put 9 seeds per square, but with those large lima beans, I'll just do 4. Let's go ahead and start with the lima beans. I'll go ahead and take these big ones, just going to lay them out on the surface. Typically, beans are planted about 1 inch deep. So, maybe there's the 8th one. And so, laying these 4 out, I'm just going to do one of 2 things. Push a hole about 1 inch deep, that's up to about my knuckle, and I can drop the bean seed in, or I can push the bean seed down to a depth of about 1 inch, and then cover up lightly with the soil. I'll do that in that bed too. For this bed, I'll put these larger kidney beans And I'll do the same basic thing, but this time I'm going to lay them out in a grid of 9. So basically 3 rows of 3, and then I'll do the same thing. Just push them into the soil and get them planted. You could do the same thing by digging a trench that is about an inch deep to put the seeds in, but I find this is about the easiest way to do it. Then cover all these up, and I'll continue until all of these seeds are in the ground. I found it a little easier to just separate the seeds, put all of them into respective squares, and now I'll go ahead and lay them out in the grid and push them into the soil. I started with moist soil, so now all I need to do is add enough water to get the surface soil to settle on top of the seeds. So I'll start the water to this garden grid system. And the grid sprays a fine stream of water into each of the squares, evenly coating the surface. And I only needed to let it run for about 30 to 45 seconds. The water is already pooling on the surface, and with the moist soil and this extra little bit of water, that's all I need for now. I'll probably need to do this twice a day, maybe 3 times a day, because it is summer and the days are warm. For now, we just need to wait and see if the seeds germinate. This is incredible. It far exceeds all of my expectations. At about the 1 week point, I was beginning to see seedlings emerge from the soil. And now, at almost the 2 week point, this is amazing. I've had germination in every single square. That means I planted 15 different types of beans from a supermarket bag, and all 15 have germinated. The germination rates vary. In these 2 squares, I put in 18 seeds, and I've got 17 seedlings. Right next door, I put in 18 seeds, and I only have 3 that are popping up. And it varies throughout the bed, with some of the beans having a lot of germination and others not so much. But I can see, like in this square right here, there's some very small seedlings beginning to emerge. So I'm not giving up yet on having a high rate throughout this bed. It's clear in these first couple weeks that planting the seeds from a 15 bean soup bag does work. Now the next stage is to actually take care of these plants and begin growing them until we can get a little bit closer to the harvest point. Now let's fast forward to the future and see how well the plants are growing. In a little more than 6 weeks, this bed is filling in very nicely. And I'm already starting to get some flower and bean pod development. Germination was good. There were a few of the beans that didn't germinate as well as the others. I'll just have to wait till harvest time to figure out which ones did the best, and then enjoy a future soup. There's just a few more weeks left in summer, but still plenty of time for these beans to grow. And I think it's pretty obvious that they all are bush beans. All of the plants are relatively compact, pretty close to the same size. None of them are vining, trying to grow taller than the others, and they're all supporting each other. And I have some very good pod development on just about everything. Looking forward to some good harvests. It's been 4 months since I sowed these seeds. And while they're all bean plants, not all of them are ready to harvest right now. They've flowered and set pods at different rates. But it's clear that some of them are ready to pick. Now, I'm trying to save dry beans. The best way to do that is to let the pod dry on the plant. You'll be able to feel when the pod has dried, and it snaps right off the plant, and it actually cracks when you bend it. Some of the plants will actually tell you when it's time. If you wait too long to harvest the beans, the pods will actually split open and drop the beans to the soil. When you see this happen, definitely start harvesting these pods. You can expect that most, if not all, of the plants of a single bean variety will be ready to harvest at about the same time. The plants will begin to fade, the pods will change color and dry, and the leaves on the plants will brown and die back. It looks like 8 to 10 of these varieties have dried beans in dried pods right now, but that still leaves a handful that are not ready to harvest. These lima beans are ready to harvest if I wanted to eat green lima beans, but they're still a few weeks away from harvesting as dried pods. And I'm not sure what kind of bean these are until I harvest them, but they're similar. They still have a few weeks to go before I'll be harvesting the dry beans. I have a pretty good harvest for this first round. I will continue this coming out every couple days to harvest as the pods dry. These pods are close, and they'll probably be ready in about 2 or 3 days. These are much softer and have a lot of moisture in them, so they're probably at least a week away. You want to continue caring for these plants during this process. So I'll continue to water, I'll continue to weed, and I'll just wait for the pods to dry on the plant. It's early autumn for me. Luckily, we're having unusually warm weather, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed about these other pods being able to fully mature and reach the point of harvest. But even if those don't, there's a lot that I've already harvested and a lot more to come. Now I'll go ahead and take these in the house, just lay them out so that they can continue to dry while I finish the harvest over the next couple weeks. To collect the seeds, just squeeze the pod, pull it apart, and they'll drop out. You might need to use a fingernail to assist. And I'll just keep doing this with all of these different types of seeds. I'll save these dried pods for the compost pile and just let all the seeds fall to the bottom of this bowl. So how did we do? Well, the weight of the beans that I planted was just about 4 ounces. And the weight of the beans that I harvested was just over 1 pound. So from a weight perspective, I quadrupled what I planted. But the quantity of the beans far surpasses the ones that I put in the ground. The smaller beans did incredibly well, and the bigger beans, not so much. So the weight doesn't tell the whole story. I have hundreds and hundreds, maybe even a few thousand beans here. So this gives me the opportunity to plant many, many more next year, or to use these and make my own soup. Of the 15 different varieties I planted, all produced plants after germinating. However, when it came to harvest, only 13 of the plants reached the point where I was able to harvest mature, dried beans. My Colorado season just wasn't long enough for those other 2 plants. I'd say this was a success. Buying a bag for very little in the store gave me an awful lot of beans, enough that I would never have to buy again if I continued planting these year after year. If you want to see another fun experiment that I did like this, watch this video next. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.